The late night show with Stephen Colbert just got canceled. Here is Stephen Colbert making the announcement last Thursday.
Before we start the show, I want to let you know something that I found out just last night. Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May. And yeah, I share your feelings.
As Colbert went on to say, it's not just that he's being canceled, the whole show is going away in May of next year. Here's Stephen Colbert.
It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of The Late Show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away. And I do want to say,
I was among the first to find out about the cancellation of the show because, in fact, I was Stephen's guest on that very day.
Senator Adam Schiff was my guest. We harmonized on 7 Bridges Road. What a voice, I cried.
Now, we taped the segment where he announced that the show was being canceled after we taped my segment, so I didn't know it at the time, but nevertheless, I made this comment during our interview.
This is what he's after. He wants to make the law firms afraid. He wants to make universities afraid. He wants to make immigrants afraid. He wants to make citizens afraid. He wants to make news organizations, CBS and Paramount, afraid. He wants to make ABC afraid. And he is succeeding. He is succeeding.
So what is behind the cancellation of the most popular show on late night? Stephen Colbert would routinely get 2.5 million viewers for each show. That is the #1 ranked show in that slot. Why would CBS cancel that show? Now, CBS issued a statement claiming that the cancellation of this show was for purely financial reasons and not having anything to do with other matters. Now, what are those other matters that contributed to this decision or may have contributed to this decision? Well, for context, CBS is owned by Paramount, and Paramount is merging with Skydance in a transaction that has to be approved by the Trump administration. And while this merger has been pending, CBS decided to settle a frivolous lawsuit with Donald Trump, a lawsuit that Donald Trump brought for millions of dollars, where he sued CBS because he didn't like the way CBS had edited an interview last year with Kamala Harris. Now, any First Amendment lawyer, and frankly, most non-First Amendment lawyers can tell you that lawsuit was frivolous. It was completely baseless and frivolous. And in fact, you don't have to take it from the scholars. CBS itself said that the litigation was absolutely baseless. Now, why was it baseless? Because CBS has a right to edit their interviews of someone the way they choose, and some disgruntled other candidate can't complain about an editorial decision made with respect to someone else's interview. So there was no basis for this litigation. And if that's the case, then why did CBS settle? And in that settlement, why did CBS agree to pay Donald Trump $16 million? Well, the answer can be found in CBS and its parent Paramount wanting that merger to go through with Skydance. That merger is worth about $8 billion. So 16 million against 8 billion is not very much. But settling a frivolous lawsuit where you're paying off the president, well, what does that really look like? What is that really? Stephen Colbert had the answer on Monday of last week.
Now, I believe this kind of complicated financial settlement with a sitting government official has a technical name in legal circles. It's big fat bribe. Because
that's right, Stephen called this a big fat bribe. And sadly, I think that's exactly what this was. But of course, that must have prompted a reaction not only from the president and the administration, but also concern, alarm with Skydance and Paramount. It was the very next day that the CEO of Skydance had a meeting with the head of the FCC, Brendan Carr. The FCC, which is in a position to hold up this merger. So the chronology is this. On Monday, Colbert calls this payoff a big fat bribe. That is the $16 million CBS is paying Donald Trump to make that frivolous case go away. On Tuesday, Skydance CEO meets with the head of FCC that could hold up the deal. And on Wednesday, Colbert is told that the show is being canceled. And on Thursday, he announces the cancellation. So is there any merit to CBS' claim that this is purely financial? The circumstantial evidence would say there isn't a whole lot of merit there. Certainly not with the timing of the decision. Now, it is true that late night comedy ain't what it used to be in terms of viewership. As lots of people have moved on to streaming services, particularly young people that watch late night, there are less viewers than there used to be, but there's still a lot of viewers. And the top-rated show was the one that CBS just canceled. It's also instructive to look at May of this year, when Paramount CEO was asked about the late night show with Stephen Colbert. And he was already talking about how they would have contract talks in the following year, that is next year, and that CBS felt it was in a good negotiating position with Stephen Colbert. There was no suggestion then that they were entertaining a cancellation of the show. So what happened between May and this announcement last Thursday that they're canceling the show? Well, the merger, the desperation to get that merger done. So this certainly, at least in terms of the timing of canceling the show, seems to be driven by a desire of these two companies to merge and all the money that is on the line. But what is being sacrificed here is the freedom of the press. You can imagine what Donald Trump's reaction was to the cancellation of Colbert. Here it is. You can also look to what other people have had to say about why CBS settled that litigation. And here, for example, is an interview that Jon Stewart did with Steve Kroft, who used to be a reporter on 60 Minutes. Listen to this question and answer.
Was this settlement just a payment so that this merger can go through and not be challenged by Trump's FCC?
Yes.
Now, the action, the capitulation by CBS, Paramount, Skydance to this real extortion by Donald Trump, the capitulation isn't confined to CBS. ABC settled its own litigation with Donald Trump, another frivolous lawsuit, brought for a completely different reason, but settled it for millions in payments to Donald Trump as well. So Donald Trump is using the power of the presidency to extort these media companies into paying him off in order for them to continue to enjoy the good graces of the president. And not just that, of course, we have seen the president exclude the Associated Press from covering certain events because the Associated Press wouldn't use the president's ridiculous vernacular, the Gulf of America, instead of the Gulf of Mexico. And most recently, we have this. Trump bringing another frivolous lawsuit, this time against Fox and the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch. And over what? Over their disclosure of communications between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. So he's suing Fox, and the irony here is that Fox will now be subject to the same extortionary pressure that CBS was, that ABC was, and considering that Fox and Rupert Murdoch probably did more than anyone else to make Donald Trump president, there is a certain irony in that network now being subject to the same vexatious litigation as ABC and CBS, the same extortion. Now, what can be done about all this? Well, first of all, media companies need to stand up for the First Amendment and the rights of a free press, which they have claimed to champion year after year after year, only to see that capitulation time and time again to pressure by this most corrupt of presidents. We saw, for example, the LA Times decide to withhold an endorsement in the presidential election because its wealthy owner was concerned about blowback. At least it certainly appeared that way to me. We saw the Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, decide to completely revamp its editorial policy in a way that would be more suitable to the liking of Donald Trump. So the track record of these media companies is terrible under this administration. But we all need to speak out too. We need to speak out in defense of the First Amendment. We have to speak out critically of those who capitulate. We have to prize truly independent journalism that isn't subject to this corporate capitulation or the capitulation of these wealthy owners of American press institutions. I have my own way of describing what I think both media companies that are the subject of frivolous litigation by the president, as well as the American people, should have to this kind of extortion. Here's what I had to say on Stephen Colbert's show.
So I just want to direct this, if this is the right camera, or maybe that's the right camera.
That's the right camera right there.
Donald, piss off.
As notarizing that, have that notarized.
Yes. But Donald, before you piss off, would you release the Epstein files? Come on.
Hey everybody, so I started to make these nightly videos because I kept hearing from people with everything going on, it'd be nice to have some explanation at the end of the day that helps make sense of it all. So that's what I've tried to do, but I would love your feedback, and if you'd like to continue the conversation, please join along. But let me know, are there subjects you want me to cover? Are there movie clips you want me to include? As you can tell, I'm a movie fan, but I hope we'll get to continue the conversation and welcome your feedback.